Okay, so as I stated in the last video, I was going to be making another one. I'm actually going to break down, hopefully, and explain better the difference between sex, gender, and sexual orientation. There's been a lot of questions whenever I go and speak. People don't really understand the difference between the three, and so I'm hoping that this video will help explain that. Also, in my life right now, and in the life of the person that I'm with, people are kind of not really understanding. So I'm hoping that this video will really help explain the difference between the three because there really is a big difference and they don't impact each other. Um, so sex is what you were assigned at birth. For me, I was born a female, so I was assigned the sex of female at birth. Um, it's not what I identify as, it's not who I am or what I am seen as on a regular everyday basis, really, with anybody. Even my parents kind of have a hard time seeing me as that anymore, just because physically I don't even look that way. Uh, Gender and gender identity is what you identify as, what gender you identify as. So I identify as a male, so my gender is male. Um, Also legally, it's male and everything on everything. So I don't really ever get questioned either because whenever I show my ID, it says male on it. But gender has nothing to do with sex. It can be opposite, it can be the same, it can be anything in between. People don't even always identify as one of the gender binaries, meaning they don't necessarily identify as female or male. So it's not really something that is so like in the box. I know people like to think that it's in the box and try to put people in the box, but gender is something that's very fluid and it's something that is on a very large scale and it can be anything between male and female or even both, or neither. So gender and sex have no effect on each other. Sex, like I said, I'm going to reinstate it. Sex is what it was assigned at birth to you by the doctor. Um, it's not something that you necessarily have to identify as. It's something that most people take for granted, and they actually are cisgender. Cis meaning same, so they don't really ever have to deal with what it feels like to not identify with what you were assigned at birth. They don't have to go through that process and deal with all the effects of what happens in your brain and what your body tells you and the conflict between the two. Um, Luckily, they don't have to go through that because it's not something I would wish on anybody. But gender is what you identify as. So I identify as a male, and I was assigned the sex of a female at birth. But I am transgender, trans meaning that I am going through some sort of process to transition and switch from one thing to another. For me, it's my gender and sex, so I'm switching from being female at birth to identifying as a male in my life. So that's a little bit of a breakdown of that. Sexual orientation, I'm going to touch on that. Sexual orientation is what you are attracted to. It has nothing to do with your gender or sex. Um, the only way it does is whenever you are trying to put a term to it, like if you identify as a male and you're attracted to males, your sexual orientation would be that of a gay man, most likely. Not always, but most likely. Um, so that's really the only way that it comes into play. Like I said, sexual orientation has nothing to do with what you're assigned at birth or what your gender is, and usually you go by what the person's gender is and not what they were assigned at birth. So for me, I'm attracted to females and females only. I identify as heterosexual, and that is based upon what I identify as far as my gender goes. You wouldn't go back to the person's history and say, oh, they were assigned female at birth and they're attracted to females, so they're a lesbian. That's not the way it works. You go by what they identify um, as instead of what their sex is. Now, unless they tell you something differently, that's the way that you would identify them. So, my gender, my sex, and my orientation has nothing to do with who I date. I date females and females only, but I have dated everyone pretty much on any side of the spectrum as far as sexual orientation goes. So it doesn't really have any effect on who I date as far as orientation wise. As long as they're female, I don't really care. Some people do care, but I don't. Sorry, this is something that I'm kind of going through right now, and my partner is going through right now. So it's something that I'm very passionate about right now in the moment because it's kind of creating not really problems, but it's just unwanted attention, I guess. But my current partner that I'm with, she is a female. She is a cisgender female, meaning that she identifies her gender as the same sex that she was assigned at birth, so they match. So she was assigned female at birth, and her gender identity is that of a female. She is also heterosexual, meaning that she is only attracted to men, and that's why she is attracted to me, because I am a guy. She's not attracted to the person I used to be. I joke and say that she was my dead twin sister because we're completely opposite. We really have nothing in common. The only thing is that it's the same body, and that's pretty much it. But I never was her, and she never was me. It's like two separate lives completely. So she's not attracted to that person. She's only attracted to me. And that has nothing to do with my gender identity, my sexual orientation, or my sex that I was assigned at birth. Just like my sex, my gender, and my orientation have nothing to do with her. Think about it this way. If you had, we'll just say, a heterosexual looking couple, meaning one person appeared to be a male and one person appeared to be a female, and you were making an assumption of what their orientation was. So say one person was straight, and you assumed that, and you assumed the other person was straight as well, but the other person identified as a bisexual person. You wouldn't necessarily know that by looking at them. They look like a heterosexual cisgender couple. You don't even know if they're trans or not, but they appear to be cisgender, and they appear to be straight. But that person being a bisexual person has nothing to do with the other person being a heterosexual person. It doesn't affect them. It doesn't turn them bi. It doesn't turn them gay. It doesn't turn them anything. It doesn't turn them into a woman. If the bisexual person is a woman, it has nothing to do with their sex or orientation or gender. So because they're bisexual doesn't mean that the other person's gender identity, sexual orientation, or sex has been affected. Hopefully that example makes a little bit more sense. I tried to explain it in depth and then give you a simplified example. And if you have any questions, I guess, that I didn't answer, then feel free to comment below, right down there in the comment box. But hopefully I explained it a little bit better and you can understand the difference between the three. Like I said, breakdown of everything. Sex, gender, and orientation have no effect on each other. They're not really intertwined, and they have no effect on the person that you're with. So that's hopefully summarizes everything. But anyways, like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to like the video, or dislike it. I don't really care either way. And comment below. Peace out.